Hello everyone, welcome to the another episode of Daily Newspaper Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 10th January 2024. We hope you are all doing good. So without much delay, let's discuss what are the topics that we are going to discuss today. Displayed here are the list of articles that we will be discussing. The first article, wildfire in Los Angeles. In this topic, we will be discussing the basics about wildfire, what are the factors that are contributing to wildfire, what will be the impact, and this article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. The second article, SBI, State of Poverty in India. This article is taken from the newspaper Live Mint. In this article, it is talking about a recent report submitted by the State Bank of India. In that, the State Bank of India claimed that there is a sharp reduction of poverty in India, particularly in the rural area. So in this topic, we will be discussing what are the committees that we had to estimate the poverty, what is poverty, what are the different indicators that we have to estimate the poverty. And the third article, 10,000 human genomes. This article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. In this topic, we will be discussing some basic facts related to the genome, and then we also discuss the India Genome Project. And the fourth article, parents can be legally compelled to give education money. The article is taken from the newspaper Indian Express. This article is talking about the recent verdict of Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court emphasized the right to educational expenses. So without much delay, let's begin our discussion with the first article. India releases compilation of 10,000 human genomes from 83 population groups. So what is this all about? From the heading itself, we know that it is talking about human genomes, and it is related to the Genome Project of India. And let's read the first two paragraphs of this news. India has completed and made available a year-long compilation of 10,000 human genomes representing 83 population groups, making up about 2% of country's 4,600 population groups as a database. This collection will serve as a template for future investigations into disease and drug therapy. The Genome India database is now, as it is known, will now be available to researchers across the world for investigation and is housed at the Indian Biological Data Center in Faridabad, Haryana. So from the first two paragraph itself, we got a prelims bit, that is the location of Indian Biological Data Center. It is located in Faridabad, Haryana. Sometimes you can expect this as a map question or the match the following question in UPSC prelims. And what is the importance of collecting human genomes? We know that the people, the humans are evolved over period of time, and the surroundings that we are living has highly influenced, or the practices that we are following for generations has highly influenced our body setup. For example, if you take the Zulu population of South Africa, they have lactose intolerance. That means if they consume milk or milk products, they will experience certain health problems. And if you take the Dinka population of South Sudan, they have sickle cell anemia, which makes them immune to malaria. We know that Sudan population and Sudan area, it is known for what type of climate? Tropical type of climate. Therefore, this area has a prevalence of diseases and infections like malaria for a very long period of time. And the sickle cell anemia in this people makes them, or the blood structure or the red blood structure formed due to the sickle cell anemia made them immune to infections like malaria for a very long time. So this is how the surroundings or the climate that we live or the ecology influences the human evolution or the human in different ways. So therefore, understanding different type of population and their health and their body setup is very important to tailor health policies in the upcoming days. So in this background, let us discuss more about Genome Project of India, and before that we have to understand certain biological concepts related to this. First is DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a genetic blueprint because it consists of code for maintaining and the development of organisms. Or in another sense, we can say that it is a molecule which carries the genetic instruction related to the growth, development and function of organisms. And the structure, you can see, it is looking like a twisted ladder, right? This structure is known as double helix, and it consists of different type of bases and proteins. And the second concept is gene. So it is a segment of DNA. So here you can see this is the gene. So this is a segment of a DNA, and this is responsible for coding set of proteins, and it determines the trait. For example, if you take a particular group of population, a slight difference or changes in the gene will be apparent. For example, that will be apparent through changes in the hair color, or changes in the facial structure, or changes in the eye color. For example, if you take a particular population, you can see brown eyes or gray color type of eyes. So this is because of the a difference in the gene within a population. And the third concept is chromosome. It is a thread-like structure made up of DNA and protein, and it carries genes from one generation to another generation. And in a human, there is a pair of 23 chromosomes, which means total 46 chromosomes in a human body. And human genome, it is a complete set of DNA, and it includes all type of genetic information. And according to the estimation, the human genome consists approximately 3 billion DNA base pairs. Coming to the Genome India project, it is launched in the year 2020, and it is launched with an objective to collect 10,000 human genomes in the next 3 years, that is from 2020 to 2023. And it is funded by the Department of Biotechnology, working under the Ministry of Science and Technology. And this project was led by the Indian Institute of Science, Center for Brain Research, along with the other 20 universities. And coming to the major objectives of this Genome India project, the first one is cataloging genetic variation. That means understanding the diversity within India. What is meant by genetic variation? Genetic variation refers to changes in the genetic variation refers to differences in DNA sequence within human population. That, like I mentioned, that can lead to differences in hair color or eye color, or sometimes facial structure, etc. And the next is creating a reference genome. For example, from here onwards, the researchers from other part of the world can also access the data in the biological institute that is located in Faridabad, Haryana. So this will help in the future research. And then the precision medicine. So that is personalized healthcare based on genetics. There is a separate field in the pharmaceutical science that is known as pharmacogenomics. And this pharmacogenomics, or this field, is focusing on understanding how the genetic setup of an individual is responding to a particular medicine. So this kind of developments can happen if we further investigate, or if we launch these kind of projects. And coming to the key focus of this Genome India project, the first one is genetic mapping. That means understanding the variation among the Indian population. So for example, we launched the sickle cell anemia elimination project, and this is giving more focus on ST population and other vulnerable population, including women, children, etc. So how we can understand this? Only through making a genetic map. And so therefore it plays an important role in public health policy. And then precision medicine, like I mentioned before, the pharmacogenics. So this pharmaceutical science is, this field in the pharmaceutical science is focusing on how the genetic setup of an individual or a population is responding to a particular medicine. And then disease research. For example, we can understand certain hereditary research. For example, thalassemia. It is a blood disorder that is prevalent in population group with a history of malaria. So this kind of investigations will help in formulating policy or medicine for such vulnerable communities. And then advance in the biotechnology. So therefore this will further give a way for further research in the field of biotechnology. And finally, the ultimate objective of all this research is framing a public health policy. So these are the key focus area of Genome India project. So in this topic, we discussed certain basic biological concepts, and then we discussed what is Genome India projects and its basics. So based on our discussion, try to answer this prelims practice question. The question is, consider the following statements regarding the Genome India project. Statement 1, it aims to sequence 10,000 genomes from diverse Indian population. Statement 2, the project is led by Indian Institute of Science, Center for Brain Research. Statement 3, it focuses solely on sequencing genomes related to cardiovascular diseases. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Option A, 1 only. Option B, 1 and 2 only. Option C, 2 and 3 only. And option D, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is option B, 1 and 2 only. It aims to sequence 10,000 genomes, and we collected it, and here onwards it will be available to different scholars from different part of the world. and we are expecting a great revolution in the field of health in the upcoming days. And the project is led by the Indian Institute of Science Center for the Brain Research along with other 20 universities in India. That also we discussed, and it is focusing solely on sequencing genomes related to cardiovascular disease. So this is an extreme statement, and usually this will go wrong only, and here also it is wrong. So the correct answer is option B, 1 and 2 only. Yes, the answer is 1 and 2 only. So with this, let's move to the next topic. SBI's estimate and the state of poverty in India. The article is taken from the newspaper Live Mint. In a recent report, the State Bank of India, they claimed that there's a sharp reduction of poverty in India, particularly in the rural area of India. And this sparked a debate between the economist and the report. Economists questioned what type of methodology the bank adopted to come to this conclusion. So in this topic, we are going to discuss what are the committees that we had in India to estimate the poverty and what are their methodologies and what are the key indicators of poverty. And then we also discuss the key findings of this SBI report. So methods of poverty estimation. So before that, we have to understand what is meant by poverty. Poverty refers to a lack of ability or inability in the communities or the individuals to access the basic needs of life, which includes food, shelter, clothing, medicine, and education. And what is the importance of poverty estimation? The ultimate objective is framing a public policy. We know that the poverty is the biggest challenge of this 21st century, and it is interlinked with various other crises. For example, climate change. One of the biggest impacts of this climate change will be the poverty, increase in the poverty, and diseases. Diseases are also interlinked with the poverty. During the time of pandemic, we witnessed that 500,000 population in India were pushed below poverty. So poverty is the biggest challenge, and it is interlinked with various other challenges that make it is the biggest challenge of this 21st century itself. And poverty estimation is very important, especially in a nation like India, to frame the public policy, because we have inequalities in the time of social inequalities, economic inequalities, regional inequalities. We have gender inequalities. So estimation of poverty plays a very important role in development and growth of this nation. And in the year 1979, the government appointed a committee known as Alag Committee, and they adopted, calorie consumption method to estimate the poverty. That is, according to them, in the rural area, if a person cannot access 2,400 calorie per day, and in the urban area, if a community or a person cannot access 2,400 calorie per day, then that community or that person will be considered as living in the below poverty. And in the year 2005, another committee was formed under the leadership of Suresh Tendulkar, that is known as Tendulkar Committee, and they gave a broad definition to this poverty. That means they said that the poverty estimation should not be confined to the calorie consumption. It should also include other factors such as the access to education, food, health, and shelter. And therefore, they fixed income. They adopted an income methodology. Here the urban area, the income per day should be 33, and in the rural area, income per day should be 27. If a person cannot get this much income, then he will be considered as a person living below the poverty. And this report or this committee was criticized for fixing low poverty line. And finally, in the year 2014, another committee was appointed, that is known as Rangarajan Committee, and this Rangarajan Committee adopted a higher poverty line compared to the Tendulkar Committee, and they fixed the urban poverty line at rupees 47 per day, and the rural poverty line at 33 rupees per day. And they also suggested inclusion of other factors to estimate the poverty, and still the definition is still a matter of debate because of its sufficiency. And we also have other approaches, which includes the calorie intake norms adopted by the Planning Commission, like I mentioned, 2,400 for rural and 2,100 for urban. And then we have the Multidimensional Poverty Index released by the United Nations Development Program along with the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. And this multidimensional poverty, it makes an estimation of poverty in different aspects related to health, education, income, food, nutrition, etc. And it can be also considered as a key indicator in a nation's progress or in a nation's progress to achieve the sustainable development goals. And what are the other poverty indicators that we have? First is income based that is per capita income. That means the income of a person in a nation. How we calculate this per capita income? The national income divided by the total population in a nation, that is known as the per capita income. And we also assess other indicators such as the unemployment rate and the wage level. For example, we can say that assessing the wage level, we can say that the formal sector has getting more income and better treatment than the people working in the informal or unorganized sector. So therefore the people working in the unorganized sector are highly in a risk of poverty than the people working in the formal sector. So these kind of assumptions or estimations we can make. And the next is the nutritional based indicators. For example, stunting, that means lack of height to the age. For example, if a person is 27-year-old and he's not even have height of 100 centimeter, then we can say that there is some problem related to his health. Then we have wasting, that means lack of weight proportion to the height. For example, if a person is having 170 centimeter of height, he should have a weight around 60 kilogram to 70 kilogram. So if, for example, if his weight is below 40, we can say that he is facing a problem of malnutrition. And related to health, we have other indicators such as infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, and the life expectancy of a nation. For example, before independence, the average life expectancy of India was 35, and at present the developed nations like Japan, they have a life expectancy over 80. And other health indicators includes healthcare access. For example, access to hospitalization, access to medicine facilities. And we have in India, we have a 3-tier system, that is primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare system. And also other factors include sanitation and clean water. And then we also adopted education indicators such as the literacy rate of a state. For example, states like the Rajasthan, Bihar, they are recording poor literacy rate comparing with the southern states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. And then we have the gross enrollment rate, that means number of students or the ratio of students enrolled in the education institutions. And then we have the dropout rate. If there is a high dropout in a particular area, then that refers to there is a social or economic problems is persisting there. For example, recently there was a report saying that there is an increase of dropout rate in India, and one of the reasons will be economic hardship or the financial strain in a particular region or in families. And then we have other indicators related to housing and infrastructure. This includes access to electricity, clean water and housing. And we know that the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is focusing on housing. And we also assess the rural urban disparities related to access to this basic infrastructure. And then we have the Multidimensional Poverty Index. It is released by the United Nations Development Program along with the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. And they assess the poverty in different dimensions, that includes health, access to education, and the living standard of the communities. And then we also consider other socioeconomic factors, for example, caste, gender, regional disparities. For example, the people from ST/SC background are living in low income setup comparing with the people from high caste, or the and coming to the case of gender, we can see that the even though the women has higher education or literacy rate in certain area, they will be getting only less wage comparing with the male. And if you take the other genders like transgender or transgender persons, we can see that they are getting less education opportunities, less employment opportunities, and therefore less income, which makes them in a high risk zone of poverty. And we can also have the regional disparities. For example, the Bimaru states, that is Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, these kind of agrarian states are also facing problem of poverty. And the informal sector vulnerabilities, even though we have taken a lot of initiatives to to ensure the welfare of the workers in the informal sector, still we have certain problems such as lack of wage, harsh treatment, lack of leisure time, etc. So these are the other various indicators that we have to assess or to estimate the poverty rate in a nation or in a region. Moving on to the recent poverty data and report, the National Multidimensional Poverty Index released by the Niti Aayog, they are saying that there is a decline in the multidimensional poverty in India, which means there is a reduction in the disparities. And like I mentioned in the beginning, the SDG, the first goal of Sustainable Development Goal itself is eradication of poverty. That means in the case of India, we are also targeting to eradicate or lift all the people from poverty by 2030. And for that, we have launched a lot of programs, for example, Ayushman Bharat to ensure the health, PM Awas Yojana for housing, and then we have the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana working for the financial inclusion. And now moving on to the next topic, that is the SBI report of 2023-2024. So they are saying that there is a decrease in the rural poverty from 4.86 percentage, decrease in the poverty to 4.86 percentage from 25 to 7 percentage in 2011-12. In the case of urban poverty, the SBI report is saying that the urban poverty has decreased to 4 percentage from 13 percentage in 2011-12, and they are saying that the overall poverty has reduced to, and they are saying that the overall poverty is estimated between 4 to 4.5 percentage, and the rural urban consumption gap, according to the SBI report, is also getting reduced. And but yesterday we had an editorial from Indian Express which is saying that there's a reduction, there's an increase in the rural consumption, but there is a decrease or stagnation in the urban consumption. For better clarity, for value addition, you can read the yesterday's Indian Express editorial article. So and prepare note certain key points from that. It will be useful for your UPSC mains also. And in this topic, we discussed the poverty estimation committees, their methodologies, and then we also discussed different indicators related to poverty estimation, and then we also studied the key findings of the SBI report. And based on our discussion, try to answer this prelims practice question. Question is, consider the following statements regarding poverty estimation in India. Statement 1, the Tendulkar Committee introduced a uniform poverty line for rural and urban areas. Statement 2, the Rangarajan Committee emphasized a consumption-based poverty line. Statement 3, SBI reports are the official method for calculating poverty in India. Which of the above statements is or are correct? Option A, 1 and 2 only. Option B, 2 and 3 only. Option C, 1 and 3 only. And option D, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is option A, 1 and 2 only. Statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. The Tendulkar Committee, they introduced a uniform poverty line. But when we discussed, I said that in the urban area, the income was fixed at 33 and in the rural area, it was 27. This adjustment was made because of the cost difference between the rural and urban area. If you take a product, there will be a cost difference in the urban and rural area. In the urban areas or in the cities, the cost will be slightly higher. So for that only this adjustment is made. Otherwise, they introduced a uniform poverty line only. So the statement is correct. And statement 2, the Rangarajan Committee emphasized a consumption-based poverty line. That statement is also correct. They emphasized a consumption expenditure-based poverty line. So that statement is very correct. And statement 3, it is wrong. The SBI reports are the official method for calculating poverty in India. Still, it is a debate what method they adopted. So this statement is entirely wrong. It is not the official method for calculating poverty in India. So the correct answer is option A, 1 and 2 only. So with this, we will move to the next topic. Wildfires rage out of control near Los Angeles, killing at least 70,000 asked to evacuate. So from that headline itself, we know that the topic for the discussion is about wildfire. So what is or what are wildfires? It is uncontrolled fires spreading rapidly through vegetation, and it can be caused by both natural or anthropogenic reasons. And this kind of events plays a very significant role in shaping landscape, ecosystem, and biodiversity. For example, if you take the savanna, the biome or the ecological community, which is located between the tropical rainforest and the desert. Therefore, it will show the features of both the desert and the tropical rainforest. And what happens to the savanna after a particular development? This community will attain a particular development, and after that, this will experience natural disasters like wildfire or drought. And therefore, the community will be destroyed and it will be restart everything from the very beginning. And that's why if you take the grass in the savannah, you can see that the grass will have a strong root. And if you take the trees in savannah, they has a particular shape which makes them resistant to drought and wildfire. And if you take the animals, they are fast runners. For example, deer, cheetah and all. And at the same time, it also has significant risk because it poses significant risk to the human life, infrastructure and to the environment. And now we are going to see the causes behind the wildfire. The causes can be classified into natural reasons or anthropogenic reasons or human causes. Natural reasons includes lightning, lightning, during the time of lightning there will be a discharge of energy, and this can act as a triggering factor behind the wildfire, because this can cause this can ignite the dry grass or the dry vegetation. And the next is the presence of volcano or volcanic eruption can sometimes cause wildfire. And spontaneous combustion, that means wildfire will automatically happen under extreme heat condition or under extreme temperature. And the next is anthropogenic reasons or human causes, that includes agriculture practices such as slash and burn practice and stubble burning. We know we practice this jumming or slash and burn agriculture in the northeastern region, like in the states of Mizoram and Nagaland. And then we have stubble burning. It is one of the major reasons behind the air pollution in the Delhi. And still the agrarian communities in Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, they are practicing the stubble burning. And the next reason is negligence, that includes campfire, firework, and discarded cigarettes can sometimes act as a trigger behind the wildfire. And industrial activities, because of the urbanization, the industries are getting closer to the forest region. Therefore, any failure in the industry or sometimes a fire in the industry can spread to the surrounding forest and can become a big forest or the wildfire. And then arson, that is intentional ignition of the forest for some personal reasons or for some vengeance and all. This can also become wildfire. Now we are going to see certain conditions behind the formation of wildfire, or what are the factors that can intensify the wildfire. The first major condition is the climatic conditions. For example, the presence of a high temperature or drought or dry wind can cause the wildfire. Next is the wind pattern. The region, during the time of summer season, the certain regions will experience low pressure. So during the time of low pressure, the wind will blow from high pressure region to low pressure region. Therefore, a presence of wind will be there in the region with the wildfire or region which are prone to wildfire. So Australia is the best example. And then we have the vegetation, type of vegetation. The regions with the dry grass, shrubs, or trees are highly vulnerable to wildfire. The best example is savanna. And then the human activities, for example, the urbanization can during the time of due to this urbanization, the industries are getting closer to the forest region. An accident in the industry can become a wildfire. And then topography, for example, the topography such as slopes and valleys in a region can influence the intensity of the wildfire. And the wind, the intensity of the wind, coming one more factor, that is the presence of wind can also act as a factor behind the rapid spreading of the wildfire. Coming to the impact of this wildfire, the first major impact is the environmental impact, that includes the loss of biodiversity, flora, fauna, everything will be died during the time of natural disasters like drought or wildfire. The next is the soil erosion, that means the wildfire can significantly lead to soil degradation. And next is the air pollution, that means the wildfire can destroy the matters, and therefore carbon dioxide and particulate matters will be released during the time of this kind of events. And this can also pollute the nearby water bodies, because the flora, fauna, everything will be died, and this will be settled in the nearby water bodies, can pollute the water bodies. And or the infrastructure damage, for example, the wildfire can destroy certain industries, and the pollution from these industries can reach the nearby water bodies and can damage or can pollute the water bodies. So there is a possibility. And then coming to the economic impact, the property damage and the infrastructure loss. For example, in the case of Los Angeles, we know that the government asked nearly 70,000 people to evacuate from the region. And the loss of agriculture productivity, that means the soil degradation eventually leads to less agriculture productivity. And high firefighting and rehabilitation costs. For example, if a region is vulnerable to certain disasters, then the government has to allocate more fund for such a natural disaster management. Therefore, it can bring a significant strain in the government budget as well. And the next is the social impact. This includes the loss of human life and the displacement. In the case of Los Angeles, 70,000 people are asked to evacuate from the region. And the health issues, because this, like I mentioned, the wildfire can cause air pollution. The air pollution is caused due to the release of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, and particulate matter. This will create health issues to the people who are vulnerable to other health conditions, such as people who are suffering from cardiovascular or pulmonary diseases. They will experience severe problems during the time of natural disasters or like drought or wildfire. And next is a psychological stress, that is the trauma. For example, during the time of Wayanad incident, there was an article in the Hindu which was talking about the how the relation between the climate change and the psychological trauma. The people living in a risk zone, a hazardous zone, will experience more stress and psychological issues than the people living in the plains and other safe area. And the next is the climate change linkages. For example, it act as a cause and it act as an effect of the climate change. For example, during the time of wildfire, it will release the wildfire. Due to this wildfire, greenhouse gases will be released, and this will further worsen the global warming. And in return, the global warming is one of the major reasons behind the events like drought and wildfire. And major wildfire prone regions in the world. In the global level, we have Amazon, California, Australia, Mediterranean region, Siberia, and Africa. And in India, we have Western Ghats, Himalayas, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Northeast. And coming to the management of this wildfire, first is prevention. So that includes community awareness. We have to make awareness in the community how to regarding the fire safety practices. For example, we can make awareness in the agrarian communities regarding the stubble burning or the slash and burning practices and all. And then controlled burns. So when they get awareness about this kind of fire safety practices, we can go for controlled burning activities. And the next is fire break. That means creating a gap in the field to prevent the expansion of the fire. For example, the vegetation will be here and the vegetation will be here also. A gap will be created between the two crops or between the two fields. Therefore, it will prevent the spreading of wildfire from one field to another field because of this fire break. And next is forest management, that is constant evaluation and monitoring of the activities within the forest. And the next is detection and monitoring. For example, satellite imagery. Then that is satellite imagery. For example, this kind of satellites will provide real-time information about a particular region. And then using drones and fire weather forecasting. And next is response. For example, that includes fire fighting teams. That means persons with trained persons with skills to fight the fire. And then we have water bombing. That means using the drones or the airlifting water, and we will we'll bomb it on the region affected by this wildfire. And then we also have evacuation plan to safely displace the people from the affected region. And next is the rehabilitation and recovery. That includes reforestation and soil restoration. So this will enhance the soil productivity, and eventually we can make the region less prone to wildfire and all. And then we go for compensation for the community. So therefore they can they will provide a financial relief to the affected communities affected by this kind of natural disasters. And then going for long-term ecosystem restoration. For example, in the case of India, we have something called Campa. For example, if an industry is taking a particular area for deforestation, then they have to plant that much trees in another region. So we can go for this kind of balanced approach. This can bring a long-term ecosystem restoration. And coming to the certain government initiatives to prevent the wildfire or forest fire related events. The first one is National Action Plan on Forest Fire. This is aiming to reduce to reduce the risk associated with the wildfire by 2030. And then we have the Forest Fire Prevention and Management Scheme. This is focusing on awareness, capacity building, and better management for fire safety and all. And then we have the Forest Survey of India. This is focusing on monitoring the forest using the satellite. And then we have the National Remote Sensing Center. This will track the fire using advanced remote sensing technology. And then we have the state-specific initiatives. For example, in every state, they have a particular firefighting task, they have a particular disaster management team, relief team, etc. So in this topic, we discussed what is wildfire, what are the factors that is contributing to wildfire, or what are the causes behind the wildfire, and what are the conditions for the formation and the intensification of wildfire. Then we saw the government initiatives and what are the initiatives that we have to manage the wildfire. So based on our understanding, try to answer this prelims practice question. The question is, which type of forest is more likely to fuel a wildfire? Option A, wetland vegetation. Option B, deciduous forest in monsoon season. Option C, dry grasses and shrubs. And option D, tropical rainforest. So in the beginning itself, we discussed that the dry grasses and shrubs are more vulnerable to wildfires and drought. Yes, the answer is option C, dry grasses and shrubs. So with this, we will move to the next topic. Coming to the next article, Supreme Court, parents can be legally compelled to offer education money to daughter. The article is taken from the newspaper Indian Express. So this article is talking about a matrimonial dispute in which the daughter is studying in Ireland and the father gave an amount of 43 lakh towards her education, but she refused to retain it. And the court, after assessing the financial capacity of the father, they said that the court observed that there is no need to return the money to the father. So this is bringing a new right to the Indian context, that is right to education expenses. And this judgment was made on January 2nd, 2025. And what is this right to education expense? What was the observation of the court? And the court observed that the daughter has an indefeasible, legally enforceable right to secure education expenses, and the parents can be compelled to provide support within their financial capacity, and the daughter's fundamental right to pursue education is protected here. So we know that India, we have a history where the women were restricted from pursuing higher education. Therefore, this judgment is a milestone, and it plays a very important role in ensuring the confidence, important role in building confidence in children as well as in daughters to pursue their higher education. So what is the background of this case? We already discussed that it is a matrimonial dispute involving a daughter studying in Ireland, and the father gave an amount of 43 lakh, but she refused to retain it. And finally, the court, after assessing the financial capacity of the father, the court observed that the daughter no need to return the amount. And what is the significance of this case? So it is reinforcing the parental duty to fund children's education, and it protects the dignity and the independence of the children to pursue higher education. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it builds a kind of confidence. At the same time, it plays an important role in Indian context because of the past, and it sets a strong precedent for securing children's right in matrimonial dispute too. And coming to the constitutional legal measures in India that ensures the right to education for women and children. The first is right to education, mentioned in Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. According to this article, the children should get primary education. Children between age 6 and 14 should get primary education. And then we have Article 39E and 39F. So here the children's development, which is talking about children's development in a healthy and dignified manner, which includes access to education too. And then we have the Article 41 of the Indian Constitution. It is talking about the public assistance for the education, and we know that under the NEP 2020, the National Education Policy 2020, the government is working to increase the public expenditure on education from 2% to 6%. And then we have Article A, Clause K. So it is talking about the parental duty to provide education to the children between the age of 6 and 14. And here also Article 21A also talking about that same only, but it is emphasizing Article 51, it is emphasizing the parental duty to provide the education. And moving on to the legal measures, the first act is the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act of 1956, and under Section 20 of this act, the parents are obligated to maintain minor children and unmarried daughter. That means they should provide them all basic needs from food, clothing, education and other basic necessities. And even though it is Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, this act is applicable to all other communities including Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs. And then we have the Guardians and Wards Act in 1890, and here the court ensures, and this act empowers the court to ensure minors' welfare including education arrangements. And here under this act, the children's welfare was considered as the paramount. So therefore the court can force the parents to provide them with the basic needs and particularly the education. This act is also applicable to all religions. Moving on, the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. This act safeguards the rights of children in conflict with the law or in need of care. For example, we know that the orphans, the orphan children are taken care under this Juvenile Justice Act. And therefore this act will also provide them the basic right that includes the right to education and right to stay, right to food, everything. And this act has a special provision for children in need of care and protection. We know that there will be regular inspection in orphanages, and there will be an officer responsible in district level to take care of the children, and the officer will be a female. So if you go through further details of this act, you will get to know all the fact. And the next is the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 under section 20. This act empowers the court to order financial relief for maintenance, including education. That means we know that we have in India, one of the major problems faced by women is the education after marriage. So therefore, under this act, the court can order financial relief for maintenance, including amount or fund for education. And this is applicable in cases of domestic violence or family disputes too. And coming to the certain judgments, like I mentioned, this is not the first judgment. Even before that, there were certain judgments in the Supreme Court which was talking about the similar idea. The first is the Chandigarh administration versus Jasmine Kaur 2014. And in this case, the Supreme Court observed that the right to education is an integral part of dignity and equality under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And therefore, under any context, the children's access to education should not be compromised. And then we have the Kusum Sharma versus Mahendra Kumar Sharma 2020. And in this case, this is another matrimonial dispute related to alimony. And in this case, the Supreme Court asked both parties, that means both husband and the wife, to present the details regarding their financial asset, their income, everything. And the Supreme Court held that the court must carefully evaluate the parents' financial capacity in matters related to the matrimonial dispute or other family dispute. And therefore, in this case, the court also emphasizes the children's education is priority. That means whatever the family dispute or whatever the issue, the children's needs should not be undermined. That's what the strong judgment made by the court in this case. And therefore, the children's need, including the access to education, is prior. Therefore, it cannot be disturbed even in estranged relationships. So in this topic, we discussed the right to education and the right to education expenses, and a new right that we are hearing in the Indian context. And hereafter, the children and the unmarried daughters can, with full confidence, they can ask their parents to fund for their education. So the court has provided a backing through its verdict. And based on our discussion, try to answer the prelims practice question. The question is, which article of the Indian Constitution provides free and compulsory education for children between 6 and 14 years? Article 21, Article 21A, Article 51A clause K, Article 39F. The right answer is Article 21. So it's a factual question, so you have to learn. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's newspaper analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you. Have a nice day.